What is the craziest thing you've gotten away with that nobody has found out about? I can draw and paint pretty proficiently, and I'm the only one in my family who can do so. My mother always liked to cash this in with relatives by encouraging me to draw little pictures on thank you cards and the like. Needless to say, I never did. But one time while we were up visiting the grandparents in Wisconsin, my grandfather is crazy. He collects vintage cars and leaves most of them to rust. One recent addition to his collection, however, was a 1974 Ford truck. This thing was a nightmare. The inside of the bed was painted bright orange. The outside upper half was the same orange, and the lower half of the sides was black. Separating the colors was a strip of lime green. The inside upholstery was fake orange velvet. The brakes hardly worked, and the horn was operated by pulling a string connected to an air pressure horn under the hood. My dear old grandfather decided to go all out and adorn the whole thing with tigers, in honor of his old high school mascot. I, being the resident artist, was coerced into painting 3 tiger heads on orange boards that he planned to stick on the sides of the car. I was not too happy about contributing to this horrendous farce of an automobile. The first 2 tigers I painted as best I could. They looked passably like jungle cats looking perturbed at hanging on the side of a car. The third, however, I gave derp eyes. Everything else was fine, but the eyes were pointing in no way the same direction. I proudly presented the 3 feline likenesses to my grandfather, who put them on the sides and front of the car. Several other relatives gathered and commented over how good of an artist I was. Not a single one of them commented or pointed out the blatantly retarded looking tiger that I had done. Benefits of non-confrontational relatives, maybe. TLDR. Butter should be applied liberally and evenly on the appendix before removing. I was a sophomore in high school in weight training class. The night before, we had no food, so I whipped up some waffle mix and dusted off the waffle iron and made waffles. Fast forward to weight training. Me and my buddy were running a lap before class. We started jumping in the air and farting. While midair, I let loose this shotgun blast fart, and even some of the Mexican kids next to us were like, dang. So I go to weight training and this girl wants me to sit on her feet so she could do sit-ups. I agreed, and while sitting there, I smelled some nasty crap smell. It was gross. She liked to talk about weird stuff, about how she liked to poop. I figured she farted while doing a crunch. End of class. We go to change. I had just switched from boxer to box briefs because the laps before class would give me wedgies. Brand new underwear. First time I had worn them. They were supposed to be grey, but they looked camouflage. There was green baby crap everywhere in my pants. It was everywhere. Butt cheeks, gooch, dong, babby shit everywhere. Somehow, because my briefs were so new, it concealed the crap like a ziplock, and nobody turning class knew. I mean, I was breaking new lift personal goals, pumping iron the whole time with gym shorts and a shit bubble on my butt. When I jumped in the air, the loud shotgun blast exploded green crap all up in my grill. It took me half an hour to clean up. Thankfully it was only lunch I missed. I threw the underwear away and washed up. Couldn't believe nobody knew. Not even the poop girl gave me any weird looks. I was bullied a lot in high school and really only had one friend, but he had a crap load of friends. He told me about a party that he was going to, and he assumed that it would be cool if I went since we were both friends. Well, I got there, and people would wait for my friend to leave and team up bullying me around and being dongs. So when my friend came back, he would walk away talking and mingling and leave me while he went around mingling with people. I told him that I need to use the bathroom, then we can go. Now, it was one of those. The kids share one bathroom and the parents use the master bathroom. So I went up to the bathroom, used the bathroom, and then glanced over at the shower and saw girly shampoo, and some normal kind, like Head and Shoulders or something which I don't remember, but there was girly and normal. So to get back at the dude who was throwing the party, he was also being one of the buttholes. In fact, he was the one getting people started and riled up on fricking with me. So I grabbed the normal shampoo and jerked off and came into it, closed the lid, and then put it back and walked out. No, I did not shake it up, because I wanted his next shower to be a wad of jizz in his hair. Just the thought of your hateful masturbation is making me laugh uncontrollably. A few years ago, when I was about 19, I was visiting the girl I was dating at the time in New York with a buddy of mine. It was New Year's and my friend and I had been drinking beer since 4 PM and were pretty buzzed by the time people started showing up around 9:30. They asked us to come into the kitchen to do a shot of Malibu rum with them. I don't usually like coconut rum, and I can't really mix beer and liquor, but I decided to suck it up and do it, mainly to impress the girl. The second it's down I can tell I am going to throw up, so I casually walk away and back into the den. I then proceeded to projectile vomit the pasta I had just eaten in a line about 2 feet long. I then proceeded to vomit 2 more times right after that, but I managed to keep it in my mouth. The only thing I could think of was to swallow it back down, so I got it down after a few agonizing seconds and realized I had to clean up quick, and luckily I had a paper towel left over from the pasta. I wiped it up in one swift motion, then poured some beer on it to cover up the smell. Just then they walked in and asked what happened. Oh, just knocked my beer off the counter. Don't worry, I've got it covered. Frick yay. Back when I was 15 or so, some friends and I had these homemade rockets. Not like fireworks, but the model rockets you could shoot 100 feet in the air and they would parachute back down. We were up in the hills shooting them off when one of them misfired. It started a small fire in the grass. We tried to put it out but it spread faster than we could handle. We ended up having to sprint down the hill from the fire because it was moving so fast. I called 911 and we all jumped in our cars and sped off. We parked a couple miles away and watched in horror as the fire spread across the hills towards a housing complex. 5 or so fire trucks arrived and saved the housing complex from burning down. Took them the rest of the day to get the 4 burning hills under control. The police called me back on my cell phone and I told them I was driving by and called the fire in. Nothing else came of it. TLDR. Friends and I started an enormous fire in the hills that almost burnt down a housing complex and nobody found out it was us. Senior year of high school I used to dress really sharp, and I usually carried around a laptop case with me because I like to bring my laptop to school. One day I was finishing up my trig test kind of late and the bell rang to go to the next period. I stayed in that class for an extra 3 minutes to finish up my last question and left. Halfway there the bell rang again, marking the beginning of the next period. In my school it was common to do tardy sweeps where deans roll around in golf carts picking up kids who are late and give them detentions. Anyways, I see a dean pick up one of my friends and I think to myself, frick, I am gonna get owned. Then I remembered what one of my friends told me. If I walk like I own the place people will believe it. So I kept my cool and kept walking past the dean. But he tells me to come on over and asks me where my hall pass was. I don't know what came over me but I looked at him straight in the eyes and said, "Excuse me." He looked me in the eyes and repeated the question. "Where is your hall pass?" I looked at him with the straightest face possible, chuckled a little, and said, "Oh, I'm a computer technician. I'm going to portable 118 to go fix a computer right now." He looked at me for 4 seconds and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mistook you for a student." Then I said, "It's okay, it happens all the time," and I left. All the while my friend was sitting in the golf cart with his mouth wide open. I kept walking to class and another dean in a golf cart asked me for my hall pass. So I told her I was a computer technician too. I was on a fire at that point, trying to contain my laughter. Anyways, I get inside of the classroom, laugh pretty hard, and everyone looks at me. Obviously I'm late and the teacher, noticing that I am late, asked me where my pass was. I was on a roll at this point so I had to keep going. I told her that I wasn't late and sat down. 10-20 minutes into class my friend who was sitting in the golf cart walks in and shakes my hand. We have a good laugh and play it all cool. TLDR. Monkey shoots on hand, throws it at your face. One time I found a girl passed out in a street near my house. When I approached her, I thought she was a dead body literally. She was wearing tight jeans and a loose white singlet but no shoes. It was only when I removed the wallet from her back pocket that she stirred ever so slightly, alerting me to her still being among the living. After I emptied the contents of her purse onto the sidewalk next to her, I noticed her driver's license. From this I was able to gather her address. My mind was ticking over, wondering what I should do next. When I shook her slightly, She was completely unresponsive. Luckily, I'm a pretty big guy. I stooped over and gathered her up in my arms, picking up her meager belongings at the same time and began walking her back to my apartment. I was sweating, but not from the physical exertion. I was nervous. If anyone stopped me or asked what I was doing, I would probably end up in a lot of trouble. After I arrived back at my apartment and was heading through the front gate, I noticed my flatmate's Volvo in the driveway. He had come home early from dinner. I was concerned that if I rocked up to the apartment with this girl in my arms it would look dodgy, so instead I carried her around the back and put her on the small strip of grass out the back. She hadn't even stirred this entire time. I ran upstairs as fast as I could and grabbed my car keys. I knew now what I had to do. After getting back to her, still as a lamb, I only noticed now in the dim light from the porch how young she actually was. 20 at the most. Very pretty. I picked her back up, stowing all her belongings in my coat jacket and walked her around to my car, putting her in the back seat. I then drove her back to her house, taking her out of my car and putting her on the porch next to the front door. There was TV noise inside, so someone must have been home. I rang the doorbell and left. Heroic considering the name. 1. Literally stole almost everything I own from age 10-16. Everything from toys to small electronics to CDs to pirated software. I cashed the checks from pirated software sales at local currency exchanges. I also learned that you cannot be charged with stealing if you do not attempt to walk out with the item. Never got caught. 2. Pee my pants as a freshman in high school waiting for someone to leave an after school event. I thought I could hold it but let it fly and then went to bathroom and dried myself off. Left a big puddle in the hallway. 3. Changed my grade in a teacher's computer when she left the room from a D to a B. If I got caught, I would have been expelled. 4. Stole money from my Spanish teacher's desk from a pouch when she wasn't looking. Used money at local arcade. 5. Killed a class pet pink toe spider by hitting it with a pencil while it was hanging upside down. All its legs fell apart and no one knew why. This was in 5th grade. 6. Destroyed a rental car by driving it like an idiot and blamed wet road when tow truck guy pulled up. He then dropped off a new rental and I left without a single frick given. 7. Cheated on a final round interview with a very popular tech company where I was asked to solve a complex malloc problem and I said I had to run to the bathroom. Then looked through notes in my pocket while installed and remembered enough to solve it when I got back. Got the job. I'm not all bad though, but after writing all out, I feel like a complete butthole. I'm totally reformed now with family and kids and quite happy following all laws and rules. From a young age I knew that only 2 people do stupid things. Very dumb people and very curious people. I was 14 and working a summer co-op, which basically meant we were indentured servants and worked for less than minimum wage. My taskmaster assigned me to go upstairs with some trash bags and clean out an old neglected office. They gave me no direction on what I should keep, throw out, etc. So I got bored quickly, and as teenage boys are wont to do, my thoughts turned to the hot secretary working the office. This old office was dark, had no window and was filled with bookshelves that blocked off the view of the desk from the door. I sat in the chair and faced the wall. So I whipped it out and started churning butter while thinking about that hot secretary. My batter blows all over the wall and I leave it there. I wipe my hand off inside one of the old books and zip myself up. 30 seconds later, my taskmaster comes upstairs to check on me. All he sees is me standing there in front of the desk sorting through crap. Luckily the walls were white, so I don't think he noticed anything, but I never made an effort to clean it up. Freshman year of high school, we had an away football game. The game was at 11 AM on a Saturday and normally after I wake up I do my morning pee. But that day I didn't have the feeling. I went to school, got all my pads on, got on the bus, and when we got there, I had to pee like a racehorse. But I had no clue where the bathroom at this high school was and the game was starting in like 30 minutes. Warm-ups passed and the game started, but I still had to pee. By halftime, I honestly thought I was going to blow. Instead of kneeling before our coaches while they give us pep talk before the second half, I stood up and rocked back and forth constantly to try to relieve the pain. Yes, it started to hurt. I finally knelt back down, and right then and there, it went. I pee in my football pads. Luckily for me, I was in the back of the group so nobody saw me or my awkward looking face while I had to deal with the warm yet awful sensation flowing down my leg. I thought that would be the end of my life, but luckily the pants were white, so the pee easily passed for sweat. To this day, I still have never told anyone. Hooray for the internet. When I was in grade 8 in boarding school in India, I used make a nice cup of ramen and cocoa using an immersion heater. Now these immersion heaters required power and we didn't have any sockets. Food was considered contraband. You were allowed to have your own snacks stashed away. Electronics were contraband too. Yep, it was like a prison. I could have bulb outlets but there weren't any. So I proceeded to smash the hard wire tubing of one of the mains with a hockey stick and burned the insulation with a lighter. I would then hook my immersion heater to this and boil water to cook ramen. All was fine until one day I thought of removing more insulation so it's easier to hook onto. With a pair of wire strippers I tried cutting off insulation and in doing so accidentally cut the wire. Ouch. All was still okay though. The wires were a little stiff and if bent them just right it would still almost connect. I proceeded to make ramen every day and in doing would cause the main wire to disconnect from each other and therefore 3 dormitories housing 300 kinds go without power for a long time every night. All the electricians came and looked everywhere but couldn't figure out the issue. I did this for a year until I moved to new dormitory. TLDR. I made ramen using power main cable while letting half the school go without power. P. When I was 17, my sister and I still lived with my parents. We both parked our cars in the driveway along the side, mine in front of my sister's. This made it difficult for me to back out when I had to leave, cause I didn't want to bother my sister. Anyway, once, it was dark and I was going out, so I started my usual inch forward and back while turning the wheel enough to squeeze out of my parking spot. Near the end, I accidentally bumped my sister's car. It wasn't hard, and we both were driving old shitterboxes so I wasn't too concerned. Then to my horror, I looked out my rearview mirror and saw her car rolling backwards out of the driveway. She forgot to put her parking brake on, or didn't pull it up hard enough. Next scene, I'm running into the street trying to stop a moving car with my bare hands. I managed to get behind it and actually push it enough to stop it from slamming into the tree on my neighbor's yard. Then there I am, yelling for help, because my street is on a downward slope and this car was heavy. Finally neighbor comes out and runs into my house to tell my parents, who in turn tell my sister. She got in huge trouble for neglecting to pull up her parking brake. Praise me for saving her car. Not a word mentioned about me bumping into it in the first place. P. TLDR. Accidentally hit my sister's car with mine. Sent it rolling down the driveway into the street. Stopped it with my bare hands and sister got in trouble for not pulling up her emergency brake. Couple of decades back I was underage working at a pizza joint. The assistant manager insisted that I needed a fake ID even though I had never been drunk before. Social misfit. So he gives me his birth certificate and social security card and has me go to the DMV. Yep, I took the test, presented his documentation, got my photo taken and almost signed my own name to the dang thing. I got one letter in and quickly changed it up. Amazing in retrospect and pretty damned stupid in the doing crap that can't really hurt anyone yet put you away for many years category. Ironically, once I had the ID I almost never got carded when buying alcohol. I became the default beer man for my friends in college. Fortunately I am OHH so much wiser now. This isn't like earth shattering but the way things fell into place when this happened blew my mind. Me and a couple acquaintances, not quite friends being that I had just met these guys, were sitting outside of this apartment where a party we were at was going on smoking cigarettes. I was in mid-sentence with someone when I turned away briefly to flick my butt. As it turned out there was a parked car right in the line of fire with its driver's window just barely cracked, maybe an inch at the most. Of course my still lit cig butt sails through the narrow gap into the backseat of this car. Now, by this point I am slightly drunk and I would never ever, in my entire fricking life, be able to recreate what just happened if I tried. The people outside with me were all intoxicated as well and I spun around in fear waiting for a drunken uproar. Nobody saw a thing. I felt a third awesome for the featuring and 2/3 like a scumbag. I spent the rest of the night hoping I didn't burn a hole in their backseat. As I was reading through your story, I thought it would end with the entire interior of the car on fire. Now I am disappointed. When I was about 10, me and my friend got our hands on my older brother's stash of fireworks. We have these trails next to my house, which is basically a small wooded area a little under a block big, surrounded by streets. Well, we have this neighborhood mailman who was quite the butthole, so we decided to take matters into our own hands. We broke open about 7 packs of firecrackers and put all the gunpowder on a brick. We like preventing forest fires, so we used a brick. We then put a wick up to that and about 10 bottle rockets atop the mound of gunpowder. As the mail truck started round the bend, we lit the wick. Loudest thing I've ever heard. Followed by a short series of dinks from the bottle rockets hitting the side of the mail truck. He caught a glimpse of us, but we hid in another set of woods and watched him scour the neighborhood for at least an hour and a half looking for us. TLDR. Nailed a jackass mailman's truck with fireworks when I was about 10. In grade 10, my friend and I were in a theater class. Near the end of the year, my class and another theater class had to move because the theater was going to be used for a rehearsal for some play. The teachers, for lack of anything better to do, decided to just take the 2 classes to the music room and told us to just do whatever for an hour. My friend and I are messing around, and at one point, I did something, I don't remember exactly what, that pissed him off a bit. He decided that an appropriate response was to punch me in the nuts. My retaliation was supposed to be dropping my shoulder and checking him into the wall, except apparently the wall was just drywall and then a foot of nothing until concrete. What happened instead was I dropped my shoulder and checked him partially through a wall, leaving a huge hole roughly a foot and a half wide in the drywall. My friend and I exchange a look of oh frick and look for some way to cover it. What we saw was a big poster saying something inspirational which was stuck to the wall with sticky tack. While trying to take down to move it over to cover the hole, we accidentally tore the poster almost completely in half in the process, but still put it over the hole. Somehow, throughout all this, the teachers, who had been sitting at the front of the room talking the whole time, hadn't noticed anything amiss. For the rest of the class, my friend and I sat very quietly on the opposite side of the room from the hole, willing the class to be over. They found out about the hole in the next day or so, but never found out it was my friend and I. In grade 6, I was in Scouts. Our meetings were held in my school's gym once a week. It was the day before the Christmas pageant, and the stage was all set up. The kindergartners had an elaborately choreographed song and dance routine that they had been working on all month, and there was these pieces of masking tape with kids' names on them marking various spots all over the stage. I moved the labels all around. The next day a school-wide assembly was called. When we filed into the gym, Mrs. Yakovoni, the kindergarten teacher, was in tears, and Mr. Laurel, the principal, had a beet red face. His fist was clenched and he was gritting his teeth and pacing back and forth. He gave the whole school, really just me, a 45-minute Hitler-style lecture where he swore he vowed to catch the little crap who fricked up the Christmas pageant. I was crapping my pants, but I kept my cool. I must say I learned my lesson. Since that day I have never once switched the labels around on the stage to frick up the kindergartner's song and dance routine. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.